Well, here we are, Andrew, again, and this is episode 186. And today we're continuing in Matthew chapter 6. We're up to verses 14 through to 16. Jesus and his disciples, the last episode, we saw them in Bethany, where Jesus was anointed in an act of extravagant generosity. And so we picked the narrative up then at verse 14. Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray Jesus to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. We need to join the dots about what is actually going on here. Why did Judas do this? Why did he go to this trouble to hang Jesus out to dry? I want to suggest that the reasons may have been many and complex. The push was given in the previous piece, the rebuke over the extravagance of the woman's gift to Jesus. It may be that this, for Judas, is the last straw. He's done. In John's account, the words of Jesus are directed directly at Judas. We read that they were at the disciples, but in John's account, it's Judas who asks the question. He's the one who's complaining about the waste. He's the one who's concerned about the poor. By all accounts, Judas is the outsider. He's from Jerusalem. He's not a Galilean. So he sounds different from all the rest. He likely dresses different. He is almost certainly more sophisticated and is likely to be the most educated of the disciples. Maybe this is the reason he's trusted with the bag. He's the disciples' treasurer. He's also known as Iscariot. John's Gospel notes him 4 times as the son of Simon Iscariot. It's suggested that this is not so much a family name as an attribution to membership of a society of ultra-nationalist radicals intent on driving foreigners from the land, and particularly from the halls of power from government. The Iscari were known as assassins who secretly carried knives hidden in the folds of their garments, with which they could get into crowds and slip them out and stick their enemies and then quietly put them back and just walk away. Judas, it seems, is following in the footsteps of his father. Don't we often do that? Don't we have that? We vote either in conformity or in reaction to how our parents voted. Many of us follow down similar paths. And perhaps he joins Jesus as he sees in him hope for a new day for Israel. And Jesus sees in Judas hope of becoming the man he might yet be. He's not blind to who Judas or to what Judas is, but he sees potential, he sees possibilities in him. I wonder if Judas sees the signs in a way that none of the other disciples do. The signs of who Jesus is and what Jesus is on about, what Jesus is doing. I wonder if he sees as they're heading to Jerusalem and Jesus is riding on a donkey and he's thinking to himself, this is not what I had in mind. This is not what I was expecting. And then he realizes that Jesus is foregoing the opportunity to rally the people in rebellion. But rather than actually seeing the religious leaders as a potential ally, it's almost like he goes out of his way to get under their skins by cleansing the temple. For Judas, he sees Jesus' strategies as all wrong. Perhaps in Jesus' mind, Judas's mind, Jesus will need these people if the Romans are to be forced to leave. I've wondered, and this is my strongest hunch really, that Judas is attempting to force Jesus' hand by his betrayal, to make him come out of his corner and step up to really lead. In this scenario, Judas is more shocked and grief-stricken than anyone at the death of Jesus, knowing that he bears responsibility for it, and hence his suicide. This is the bit that makes most sense to me. I suspect it's a mixture of a whole lot of things that are going on for Judas. From this moment, there would have been a change in Judas. He is now looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. Judas has crossed his Rubicon. He can still go back, but it's getting more and more difficult. Judas is now play acting. And who notices? Not the others. For them, if Judas is behaving oddly, it's because he's always been the outsider, and now he's on his home patch, so we would expect to see him behave differently because he's here. Only Jesus can see that something has shifted at a deep level within Judas, and I'm sure he grieves for him. He does not intervene. Judas has much invested in Jesus. We need to see this. He's been with him for 3 years. Perhaps the real lesson is that when we believe we know better than Jesus and seek to impose our knowing, that things are likely to go badly, especially for us. There's also a principle that runs through Scripture. I've alluded to it before. It's best summed up in the words of the great Kung Fu master Oogway in the 2008 animated movie Kung Fu Panda, where he says, "We often meet our destiny on the road we take to avoid it." And just as for Joseph's brother in the Genesis story, and selling him to Midianite traders for 20 pieces of silver, thus bringing about the very thing they wished to avoid, the ascendancy of Joseph to great power, so here Judas in selling out Jesus for 30 pieces of silver in the hope of provoking him to action actually causes the very thing he wishes to avoid, the loss of the dream of a new beginning. Judas never understands, though, that Jesus' way of winning is by losing this particular fight, and that he becomes the ultimate victor as a result. Judas plays a key part. Unfortunately, he doesn't wait around to find out how it will eventually all turn out. He doesn't get the opportunity to say, "I really messed up big time." He doesn't get the opportunity to experience grace and forgiveness, which I feel certain would be coming. He doesn't get the opportunity to see the part that he played, that he thought had gone so seriously pear-shaped, was actually the very thing that brought about the outcome that he had always wanted, not quite in this way. It's interesting. It's complex. It's not straightforward. And it's easy to judge Judas. But I kind of think there's a bit of him in all of us. We need to be just a little bit wary. God bless you.